Ben Hogan is one of the best ball strikers to ever play the game. A lot of people look at his golf swing and look at his fundamentals and his 5 lessons book and really try and work out what was Ben's secret to being one of the best ball strikers to ever play. So we've got an in-depth breakdown of his swing here, and we're going to look through all different aspects of his swing and what he did so well that enabled him to be such an elite player. So if we look on the left hand side, you'll notice how his posture's very, very relaxed. He's a lot more hunched over than the modern day would teach, with that spine being a little bit more bent over. You'll notice as well how his belt line's very flat. We see a lot more of the modern day pros have a lot of tilt in the spine there. This is a great posture for somebody to adopt who struggles with the balance and gets a lot of early extension moving towards the ball, because as you can see, his hip joint is pretty much stacked perfectly over his ankles there. That just will enable him to keep a little bit better posture throughout the swing. Now, unfortunately, on the right hand side, we've just missed a couple of frames, so I'll just talk on the left about his takeaway. So the first move, Ben's little trigger move there, is you can see how his head tilts back. He just starts that little rotation of the head. I'll try and zoom in. Sorry, it's very pixelated because obviously these films were taken a long time ago. So you'll notice that little move back with his head there. You'll notice as well how that hip starts to move back a little bit as he's bumping to that right hand side, getting the pressure moving towards the right as everything sort of rotates. It's a very free flowing action. So he gets that little bump move, then takes the club back. You'll notice how those hands start to work a lot inside that red line. Most guys are taught really to keep those hands in the alleyway. Ben takes those hands a little bit more back inside here, but what you'll notice he does is that club shaft is really nicely outside the hands on the takeaway. You'll also notice, look at this line on his rear, look how much he sits into that trail hit there. You can see how that club head is nicely outside the hands, even though they have moved back a little bit there, and just starts to set in this position here. You can see how much he has rotated, and we'll look from face on. If we look, you'll see how he's rotated there nicely, just starts to set the club here as we've talked about. Loads of width there in the arms, rotation through the hips, rotation in the thorax, much like the modern day swing. You can see how that right elbow is higher than the left. You can see that on the down the line. And then let's take him a few more frames back. He'll start to set the club. That right arm starts to work out behind him. Ben's not the tallest guy, so very, very deep swing. So let's bring it back. I think a lot of guys would lose a lot of distance doing this because Ben has some unique characteristics in terms of lag in the downswing that enable him to create a lot of speed, but a lot of guys who have sort of copied Ben, I think will struggle because he gets very deep, and most people just don't have the flexibility that Hogan did, so they won't be able to make up that lack of width or that depth in the downswing because they don't have the tremendous body speeds or the lag that we'll see in Ben's downswing. So you can see how, like I say, it's very deep. Most guys would like to see more in the center of the chest. Can't believe I'm like criticizing Ben Hogan, but his swing worked perfectly for him. What I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that just because it's seen as a golf swing that was perfect almost, it was perfect because it worked around his body. A lot of guys just won't be able to swing the way Hogan does. So you can see that right pocket is working back. Those hands are working really, really deep here. And you can see he's not got a huge amount of width there. His right elbow's a lot lower than his left. You can see how much rotation he's got through the midsection, something that would recommend a lot of people copy. You can see how that right leg straightened ever so slightly there, and you can see how much flex he's got in that lead knee. If we look from face on, you'll really see this as he works up to the top. You can see how that knee has moved forward. Loads of rotation through the torso, nice deep hip turn, love that. Not tremendous amount of width in the typical sense because he is so deep. When you see guys that have got on a face on, the hands seem a lot higher. They're often a lot more upright than Hogan was, but Hogan is only 5'7". So let's just bring him back to there. And this is, for me, where Hogan was so powerful. He's only a little guy, like 5'7", 150. You know, he had to do something incredible to create a lot of speed. And a lot of that for me is around the left foot, the left knee, and the left hip. So Hogan raised that left foot up and then he'll slam it down, which is a very common move. But what we'll see is if we look from that face-on view, I'll draw these again just to show you, is watch how dynamic that motion is. So the left heel sort of, if we look, it rolls in slightly at the top and then he stomps on that heel. And what that does, it starts to rotate everything back and around here. So I'll get rid of those lines because they're very messy. You can see how that left knee is the first thing to move. Look how much that left knee has moved comparison to the hands. The left knee's moved a huge amount in comparison to the hands. You'll notice how, look at the left hip, how it starts to move down. Starts to move, can you see that? Moves down, tremendous amount of torque there. And because of that, look at the lag he's created there. So from the top, that's his sort of wrist set, and then he increases it even more. You can see how much speed that is going to create. Tremendous amount of lag there. You can see, look how close it is to his shoulder. Look how much lower that right elbow is than the left. If we look from down the line, you'll see how much, look at that rotation through the hips. It's incredible athleticism there. Loads of rotation. He reflexes that knee, really sits into that left side as it starts to rotate back through that planting of the left heel, that left knee working back and that left hip working back. And you can see, look, I know the camera's not great, but you can see how much he's shallowed the club, how much lower that right elbow is than the left. And that lag is just incredible. The amount that's created there is phenomenal. And you can see there, look how his belt buckles back at the ball while his chest is out here. So he's creating a tremendous amount of torque through that upper body, through the core, and creating loads of these micro stretch cyclings along the obliques, along the shoulder, and then through the wrist. So loads of tremendous speed there. We'll move him a few more frames down and you can see, look how close that shaft is to that trail shoulder there. It's incredible. We just won't see that. And Ben Hogan's a unicorn, so all this trying to copy Hogan, it's just not worth it because most people just won't have the flexibility to get into that position. You can see how much he's sort of maintained that posture there. That club is really shallowed out. You can see how much lower that right elbow is than the left, which is the opposite that most AMs do. And that really helps him create a tremendous amount of speed and power. You can see how he's maintaining that posture there. That club shaft really shallows and sort of dissects between that right forearm and the left forearm there. Just a lovely pre-delivery position. Let's bring him down a couple more frames here. You can see, look at that lag. His arms are parallel to the ground here, and that shaft is still nearly touching his trail shoulder. That's just, yeah, incredible there. So then let's move in a few more frames down. Again, just look how he's maintaining that lag. It's freakish there, maintaining, and then he gets into this pre-delivery position that, you know, that's still very much relevant. A lot of players get into a very similar position in terms of how that lead knee's leading, that left hip's rotating. Those guys have got that, maintain that angle there in the wrist. You can see how Hogan, I love always seeing this, that a lot of guys will maintain that elbow pretty much directly below the trail shoulder in the downswing. That club shaft is nicely between the forearms here. You can see how his foot's come up off the ground. That right knee is driving towards the left, taking a few more down. Look at that, it's just tremendous amount of athleticism. really rotated the hips there, and then boom, look at this impact position. The magic of Hogan here starts coming down. That right knee's driven towards the left, heels up off the ground. You can see how the weight is mostly over that left foot. A little bit of arm bend. You see that with some great ball strikers. They sort of stay in this posture, keep that trail arm bent there, and really squeeze through the ball. They're creating pressure. You can see how much lag and pressure is being created on that ball. Then we bring him through, starts to really throw that knee into the left there. Loads of extension through that leg. Let me just bring him a couple more frames. You can see, look at this. Look how athletic this motion is. Look at the chest. Look how much the hips have rotated. They're almost pointing at the target there at impact. Now, you've got to have this motion of tremendous amount of body rotation if you are on the flat side of the swing. If you're a little bit more upright, that body action won't match up to that. So you need to recognize, okay, what swing works for what physique, limitations, etc. Hogan's matched his swing perfectly to his body, and obviously after his car crash, he matched it further again. But you can see just loads of rotation, exits low and left, weight starts to move into that lead heel, loads of width there, and he's got this lovely sort of athletic soft finish where the hands come up and then just relax down. You'll notice Tiger, especially in 2005 when he was with Haney, he had much this finish where he'd finish really high and then just relax the arms down into this nice finish position. If we bring him in, this follow through, arms fully extended, loads of width there, and then just relaxes them down. And you'll note with a lot of great players, that finish position, hips, feet, knees, shoulder, all stacked up in a nice straight line there. Look at the width as well. Look how far away those hands are from the head there. You'll also notice is look how tall those hips are compared to where he started and how they move through swing. So pretty level. Look how much they move down there and then pop back up to create a lot of energy and a lot of speed. Hogan was a great swinger of the golf club, great ball striker, but what we have to remember, it was a different era. Hogan was quite short in terms of his stature, he wasn't the biggest guy, and he worked his swing around his body. I don't recommend people copy Hogan because he was a unicorn and they won't have the flexibility to create a similar swing. You've got to work around what your swing can do and work around what your body can do to create the best swing for you. He's definitely got a lot of sort of the modern things we see in the swing, especially in terms of speed, but he must have been super flexible to achieve a lot of the things that he does in terms of that lag that you can see on the right hand side. It's just incredible. So I don't think Ben Hogan's secret was anything technical, rather than he just figured out what worked best for him. Love watching this swing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful motion.